this just sort of relates to what I was talking about a little bit earlier, and that is that I got hold of a couple of G4 mirror drive door Macs.
Sure.
One was this G4. One was original mirror drive door, and then the other one was a FireWire 800. Now, the original one was introduced. I think it was 2002 from memory. And it was available in a variety of different, different speeds and stuff like that. And one of the really cool things about it was it would boot natively into OS9 or OS10, which is absolutely fantastic. It was one of the things that I really liked about the mirror drive door, because it came in a dual 1.25 gigahertz configuration and would boot into OS9, which is pretty awesome power for OS9. However, the one that I got, I ended up getting a dual 1.25 gigahertz, but it was a FireWire 800 version, which came out the year after. And that was also available in a dual 1.42 gigahertz version, I think. But I got the dual 1.25. Now, what I really wanted to be able to do was boot into OS9, but you can't do it with that model. It didn't support that. So it was a booting into OS 10 only, though it would run OS 9 in classic mode. Which is obviously just kind of a layer on top of OS 10. It's running inside as kind of like an emulator. What do they call it? Virtualization, whatever, something like that. Anyhow, I wanted to try and get OS 9 booting natively, and I heard that there are a few people that have been working on this. There's an OS9 Lives website, and there are a whole bunch of people there that have been figuring out a whole bunch of ways of making OS9 boot onto computers that weren't originally meant to do it. And this is one of them. And they've done it with the G4 Mac Mini, and they've obviously done it with these mirror drive door FireWire 800s. And so anyhow, was talking to Jay about this, and he gave me a few tips and sent me to the website and sent me where the link was to download the installer. Unfortunately, he sent me a dead link, because apparently I can't blame Jay for that. OS9 Lives has had some problems with their hosting. The provider that was holding all of these files didn't like the content and made them actually shut it down. So they do have a new home for these files, but I'll put a link in the description later on for in the meantime where you can download this installer. But eventually OS9 Lives will get all of their files back online, and you'll be able to download them. And it's a really nice little disk image that you can just burn onto a CD with Toast. Then you hold down the Option key when you start up the Mac. You put the disk in there and select the disk to boot from it, and it'll boot and just boot straight into OS9 on a Mac that doesn't support it. They've got instructions there. You basically format the drive and you install OS9, and away you go. You can just boot into OS9 on these. There's a couple of, the FireWire 800 port will not run at 800. It'll run at 400, but apparently everything else still works on these things. So it's a really nice little option to have. The challenge I had was I wanted to make it dual booting. I wanted to make it boot into OS 10. Actually, I wanted to make it tri booting, but I wanted it to boot into 10.4 or OS 9. And the problem I had was that when you go to format the drive using OS9 Lives, it won't recognize the whole drive. It'll only recognize, I think, 128 gigabytes. And I had a 256 gig in there. So I didn't want to use that formatter. So I then went into the Mac formatter. But you have to install OS9 drivers when you format it. But here's the challenging part. If you're using a Mac that doesn't natively support booting into OS9, when you launch Disk Utility, it doesn't give you the option to install OS9 drivers when you partition it. So here I was stuck in a situation where I couldn't format it in OS9, because if I did, I was only going to be able to end up using half the drive. I couldn't format it in OS 10 because then I can't actually make the drive recognizable by OS 9. And so the trick here was that I had to take the drive out and put it into a computer that does boot OS 9 natively. So I had a dual 867 that I was able to use for that. And I originally tried in my Sawtooth, but the Sawtooth was the same in that it would only recognize half the drive. It would only recognize 128 gig, not the full 256. So I ended up putting the drive into my my original mirror drive door computer, formatting the drive into 3 partitions, one for OS9, one for 10.4, and one for 10.5, Jay's favorite operating system.
Yeah.
And then when I then put it into the FireWire 800 computer and loaded up OS9 Lives, it now saw those drive partitions. So I was able to now install OS9 on one, then go in and install OS10 on the other, and then install OS10, 10.4 on the other, and 10.5 on the other. And so now I have this, this 1.25 gigahertz mirror drive door that I can boot into either one of those operating systems. And so far in the testing I've done with OS9 on it, it just works beautifully and lovely and fast. So anyhow, that was the main reason why I wanted to mention that was the trick with having to format the drive in a computer that will allow you to install the OS9 drivers on it to then allow you to split up those partitions and make it dual booting. That's it.
Alrighty. All right, so appreciate that, Bruce. That's some pretty good tips. I'm actually going to have to try that. I have an MDD, not an MDD, but a G4 over here that I'm going to try something similar to that on. I'd like to try that.
I have one comment and one question. The comment is that if you run OS9 on an unsupported Mac Mini, you're going to lose internal audio. You're going to have to use external USB speakers or something. Not a big deal. Works fine.
Yeah, the speakers are crap anyway.
Yeah, you can't even call it a speaker.
Yeah.
And the question I have is, when are you going to start overclocking, Bruce?
Well, I think I probably need to start having a chat with our friend Sean from Action Retro on that, because I think he's the expert on that sort of stuff, isn't he?
He has dethroned Rutke.
He can do it without setting him on fire, so he's definitely the guy to talk to.
Or bleeding. Yeah. Jay sets things on fire too, so
Yeah.
Intentionally.
Yeah.